hear me? Hear me good? And she did a great job at pronouncing my name, so let's give her. I don't get that. I don't get that every day. Thank you.
I'm here for you.
Thank you.
So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about the fan-first mindset and how delivering authentic, curated content is going to drive better insights and deeper impacts. My name is Jenny Yee. I'm a research manager at FuelCycle, a SaaS platform specializing in community research, and with me today is Eddie.
Heriberto Arturo Santos Salcedo III. I'm Senior Director in the Marketing and Partner Insights team at Viacom. Essentially what that means is that I lead the advertising measurement strategies and insights for the MTV networks, Comedy Central, VH1, and Logo.
So let's get started and just take a quick look at the current state of advertisement today. Last year, at the end of 2016, Zenith reported that digital-only media owners like Verizon, Twitter, Yahoo, Microsoft were generating over $130 billion in ad revenue sales. That same year, Comcast took in $12.9 billion. The social media giant Facebook took in twice as much as that with $27 billion. And then, of course, the giant elephant in every room, Google, took in $79 billion, billion, in just 2016. So that was a big year. And it was also the first year that digital ad spending surpassed TV spending for the first time in history. So what does that mean, and what does that take us to today? Unsurprisingly, this isn't going to stop. I think we're all at the point where we understand that this growth is going to continue to traject upwards up until 2021, according to eMarketer. And with everything we've been learning today, from the shift from traditional TV to digital, the increase in content, the larger spectrum and variety and availability of niche content, it's a lot to take in and a lot to determine how this affects us as researchers and programmers every day when we get back to our lives. So let's take a breather and let's go back in time and think about The Truman Show. Great movie, one of Jim Carrey's best performances. He plays an average guy, unaware that his entire life has been a reality TV show, and his loving wife is actually an actress who secretly advertises household cleaning products as they go on through their everyday lives. Sadly, and ironically, this is pretty close to the reality of advertising we're living today. And it can explain why the Kardashians sell so well to their fan base. Their show is basically a 30-minute long advertisement between themselves, their lives, all the makeup and clothing lines that they show to their fans by sharing it on their show. And what they do is they listen to their consumer base. They come back and they close the gap between this relationship by coming out with their own makeup lines, their own workout brands, their own clothing lines. And this is a sort of glimpse into the fan-first mindset, and where early adopters like Viacom are already playing in. It's creating curated content to build stronger relationships with your audiences.
So what does fan-first mean? For us, it essentially means that we're obsessed with human behavior. Over at Viacom, from a research standpoint. Do you guys hear me well? Let me know if I'm like too close or too far. But we're obsessed with human behavior, to what they do, how they do it, and essentially why they do it. It's really embedded in everything that we do. Quote even from our CEO, Bob Backer, said, "Research today is an inspiration. It's where we begin. It informs our strategies. It informs both business and creative. It shapes our brands. It inspires our content and our marketing." One, that's good to see because one, job security. Our CEO knows and loves research, so we all have jobs. And two, he understands the power of research and the power of insights and the power of always being on and always understanding consumer culture at the end of the day. You know, just for us in the MPI side, just in the last year, we surveyed either qualitative or quantitative close to 150,000 respondents. When you look corporate, that's close to 1.5 million, just over global and what other brands are doing. But from our side, we wanted to get more granular. We wanted to be more unfiltered. We wanted to be fast and flexible. And that's really where FuelCycle came in and helped us kind of build this, curate our community of fans or of consumers that we call My Voice. How can we be flexible enough to be unfiltered in today's survey methodology? How can we be innovative in the way that we measure ad effectiveness? Because as we all know, when you look at the impact of advertising, whether it be through reach, resonance, or reaction, you always get the let's do it the way it's been done. This is what I'm used to. There's not enough money. How does it prove out? All these political factors come into play that it's sometimes hard to push the envelope or innovate on how we measure success or measure impact. And that's what My Voice really allows us to do, is to really take calculated steps with spontaneous thoughts and be very unfiltered in our approach to curate fans. So I'm going to let Jenny talk a little bit of our community, and then we're going to talk to you about sort of our little test case scenario, and then how we brought it to market and our goals.
So we launched this online community platform in April of 2014, and since then we've had tens of thousands of members spanning different ages, genders, and different demographics, including Viacom and non-Viacom related watching habits. So based on these demographics and based on these habitual data learnings that we got over weeks and months of these members' time in the community, we were able to curate better research activities that fit into these members' programming and network watching habits. So things like discussions, surveys, and online focus groups were going to the right members, people who were watching the show to a certain level, a certain network, or certain programming.
So, so for us, we wanted to take it a little deeper on the content side. We know that premium content is everywhere. People are fans of everything. There's really no more, the niche subculture is now becoming mass culture to some degree. So how can we start to look at impact of content on a more granular level? So essentially, we wanted to say, okay, how do we pinpoint levels of content that drive the most engagement, the higher resonance, and how can we utilize our data scientists on our group, on our Hab, to start to catalog, label and catalog, so that not only we can provide our marketers and our partners the what worked, but the most questions that we all get if you're working at sales research, how can I make it better for next year? What didn't work? So how can we then start to passively and deeper get big, deeper knowledge on what engaged? And essentially, we wanted to evaluate our marketing efforts around key tentpoles. Okay, our Velocity team produces, custom marketing every single day for, every single brand, just about. So how do we help them, at the end of the day, learn from what worked and what didn't work? And how can we get deeper intel at the end of the day? So we asked ourselves, again, basic test, how does our custom content, or how does our custom build commercial creatives, the 30-second spot, stack up against a regular brand creative? Simple test, can be answered through traditional methodologies, but we wanted to take it a step deeper. And when it comes to content, when you're testing content, people love content. So from a survey perspective, you normally get high response rates when you survey someone a video clip or some sort of content that they love. That emotion is already there. That emotionality, that fan base is already there. So it's kind of like a biased self-reporting aspect. So we want to say, how can we sort of clean for that a little bit? So what we did essentially is went through a test where we looked at our My Voice panelists, essentially our fans to a show, specifically with the Movie and TV Awards this last year. And we utilized a facial recognition technology company out of Boston. And essentially what we did is we overlaid that facial technology over the panelists, where our panelists, or our community of fans, essentially opted in through their webcam to look at content. And in real time and passively, we were able to see their emotional recognition and their emotional responses to pieces of content versus survey responses. So then what we did with the survey piece of this test is that we were asking more attitudinal questions. As we were building audiences based off psychographics and attitudinal statements, how were certain new car intenders, how were certain folks who, looking, maybe have a girlfriend or a fiance, how did they react to the ad, or how did they react to the creative a little better? Because now that we can understand we're going into audience buying, and we understand deeper levels of the audience from a psychographic, demographic, and even intent point of view, how does creative resonate? And at what points were the highest points of recognition versus the lowest points? And then how can we label that and categorize it with our data scientists to then go back to our Velocity team and say, over the last year, let me show you what worked, and let me show you what didn't work from a tactical point of view. And then how do we build on that for the next year? And then that allows us then to develop deeper partnerships with our partners to say, before we even start the creative process, let's test it. We have this environment now. So that's essentially what we did. This is a quick snapshot. And for those that want to know the technology, we used it with Affectiva out of Boston this last year. There's tons of companies coming out of Boston that specialize in this. But we used this, and we were able to see different points of content where what shows the highest level, and then we can cut based off audience segments to understand was message recalled a little bit better because you intended to buy a car in the next 2 years. Was it lower because you already have you just bought a car last year? So those type of little nuances allows us to better serve our community of advertisers through our tent poles. So what we found, and I won't, I blinded it all and I won't give it all away because these are all proprietary to our specific sponsors, but essentially the top row is these survey responses. You see that some are better than the others, but for the most part, when you input these in your MMM models or marketers, it's all positive. But we wanted to get a step deeper. So when we looked at valence, which is a net positivity, negativity score using Affectiva, we were able to see at what point in total that the custom marketing pieces actually outperformed on the positivity scale than the normal brand creative. But what's not shown here is that by second, we can see how different emotional levels and emotional pillars actually started to peak and not peak. And then what that allows us to do on the back end is start to label and catalog it so we can see what worked and what didn't work over time and start to trend it and create sort of that best practice point of view. So for us, what did it do? And I kind of mentioned this. It really developed a deep content testing environment for our Velocity team to really understand from a creative standpoint what worked, what didn't work. Maybe if we are reaching a specific consumer segment within a specific show, how we can already predict how they would react to specific pieces of content and pieces of creative. We scaled up. It was a test because with Fuel Cycle we have that flexibility to really be unfiltered in the way that we approach methodologies. But how do we scale it up where we can have we don't need our community and provide a 3,000 person sample and really develop more audience-based specific insights, whether it be to brand creators that are out there, whether it to be duration, ad duration and length, different messaging, and create those A/B testing environments. That's something that we're doing now. And we wanted to actually productize, if that's even a word, our community a little better. So what we're doing now is actually building an app for our community. So now, as we're driving up, specifically on my end of the business, I focus a lot on the youth brands. Mobile is the everything at this point. So how do we put our app with our community next to the Facebook and the Snapchat ad? How can we get more behavior on a daily basis? How do we trigger geolocation surveys based off of experiential marketing campaigns like we're doing with Clusterfest, like we're doing with the VMAs? How do we now then trigger specific survey-based questions or trigger content as they go to a specific partner activation? So those type of things are some of the things that we're rolling out now from a product duration standpoint. And that's all I got. Guys, any questions? Thank you, guys.
Let's thank our
Appreciate it.
speakers. All right.
Thank you.